Tansei, I'm Krisan Ashkate. Welcome to a special weekend edition of APTN National News on this Indigenous Veterans Day. We start with the first budget released by the Carney government on Tuesday, where there were big investments in defense, housing and infrastructure, but not much for Indigenous-specific priorities. APTN's Fraser Needham reports.
L'Honorable Ministre des Finances.
Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne's opening remarks to the House of Commons defined the 2025 budget as a transformational one.
This budget must be generational in its ambition and serve to shape our economy and our nation's future. Il n'y a pas de place pour le retrait, l'ambiguïté.
There is no place for withdrawal, ambiguity, or even standing still. Only for bold and swift action.
Bold and swift action is what is needed. To weather the storm of uncertainty, we will not lower ourselves, Mr. Speaker. Quite the opposite. We will raise them to catch the winds of economic change because we believe in Canada.
This fits with the theme of this year's budget, which is Canada Strong, and there are strong investments in certain areas. This includes $115 billion over 5 years for infrastructure, $110 billion over 5 years on increasing productivity and competitiveness, $30 billion over 5 years on defense and safety, and $25 billion over 5 years on housing. By the government's own measure, 75% of the budget is targeted toward responding to global economic shifts, including U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threats. Indigenous people are mentioned only a handful of times in the Finance Minister's speech, and only in terms of their role in building Canada's economy.
And to do so, we will do that in a way that protects our future, that also protects our nature, and also protect our core values. Building a true partnership with Indigenous people whose stewardship and knowledge of the land continue to guide us today. Because we do not just build for ourselves. Because we do not build just for ourselves, we build for those who will follow us.
And likewise, there's only about $5.3 billion in new spending on Indigenous-specific priorities. This includes $2.3 billion over 5 years to address all First Nations infrastructure and water needs, $2 billion extra dollars for the Canada Infrastructure Bank to invest in Indigenous infrastructure, and $1 billion over 4 years as part of a new Arctic Infrastructure Fund. Perhaps most alarming for Indigenous stakeholders, there's no federal money targeted for First Nations education, Jordan's Principle, the Union Child First Initiative, or emergency response support beyond the 2025-2026 fiscal year. The government expects to save $60 billion over 5 years through what it calls a comprehensive expenditure review of the civil service. But funding at Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs and Indigenous Services is not expected to change during this time. The budget deficit is also expected to hit a whopping $78.3 billion in this fiscal year. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
In Manitoba, the Southern Chiefs Organization held its third annual Veterans Day Summit earlier this week. With more on the event, here's TR Wheatley.
Pretty wobbly. These veterans were honored at this summit for the sacrifices they made while protecting their country.
Identifying and reducing systemic barriers.
That's Justin Woodcock. The 8-year Army and Navy veteran runs SEO's Veterans Program, offering traditional wraparound support year-round to roughly 200 First Nations men and women.
We provide assistance with veteran affairs claims, monthly cultural workshops and events, peer support events, and we do advocacy.
A big topic here.
I apologize to every CAF member, veteran who experienced racism.
The Canadian Armed Forces, or CAF, made an official apology in Ottawa last week. It brings mixed feelings for many in this room, including Joseph Mott of Skownan First Nation.
I did 6 years, but I signed for 20 years. But some issues came up. They said bye-bye. I went to Europe for 4 years, standing toe-to-toe with the Russians. I wasn't scared to die for Canada.
On top of compensation, many here want to see CAF provide financial support to seek traditional healers, something Master Warrant Officer Robert Brown heard loud and clear.
How we do this moving forward.
Brown's been in the military for 32 years and currently works closely with some of the most senior-ranking military members. a role that he takes seriously.
I would say the opportunity to make change, and have the ability to kind of provide that education, the ability to, focus on that reconciliation.
But for many veterans in this room, they say that change needs to come soon.
They never got to see this apology.
Saying too many veterans have died before getting what was owed to them for the sacrifices they made. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Just 2 days ago, Manitoba's NDP government passed Bill 210 to officially mark November 8th as Indigenous Veterans Day. Good news for those who attend Winnipeg's annual event on Friday that honors Indigenous veterans. This year now marks 31 years for the ceremony in the city's core. Here's some sights and sounds.
This event would not have happened if it were not for veterans themselves who argued for a special day for Aboriginal veterans.
We have a proud military history here in Manitoba. We also know is that Indigenous veterans were not treated the same as other veterans. Through consultation and hard work with so many veterans and community advocates, I am incredibly proud to say that as of 8:55 p.m. last night, building on a resolution that was passed in 1993, November 8th is now known as Indigenous Veterans Day, officially in law.
The Honorable Ian Bushy, Minister of Natural Resources, Indigenous Future, will now lay the wreath.
We'll have more Indigenous Veterans Day coverage right after these messages. Stay with us. Welcome back. We took you to the third annual Veterans Summit held in Manitoba before the break. This year's keynote speaker was Master Warrant Officer Robert Brown from the Mistawasis Nehiyaw Nation in Saskatchewan. He talked about his Indigenous advisor role and what the Canadian Armed Forces are doing to fix a troubled history.
Through my lens and my eyes and what I do in my profession, what I do as my job as the Indigenous advisor to the Commander of the Army. I like to follow those, those seven sacred teachings. We get better through education. We get better by accepting what had happened and moving forward. And I think as us, as a tough Nahiwak peoples, we've learned from all of this. Historically, we go back to World War I with the conscription. And I think it was brought up earlier on as well, too. A lot of Indigenous soldiers, if they did join, they might have lost their Indian status, right? Did it happen? 100% it happened. The soldier settlement program, after World War I, my grandfather, Mistawas Nahiwak, he had broke that land. And when they came back, these soldiers, they were granted a parcel of land. I can't tell you exact amount of parcel of land, but they came onto the reserves and they were told to move out of there, and their lands were taken. They were taken away, and they were pushed towards the muskeg, to where the trees were, the rocks were. The post-warrior barriers after World War II. And Indigenous veterans, when they came back, and we'll use Tommy Prince as a local into your provincial area, right? That the man was banned from legions. He wasn't allowed to be inside there, right? Here you are treated as a hero overseas. You come back in your own community, and you're not even allowed to have a drink and sit down with that your fellow brothers in arms that you had fought with, right? So it's those are one of the other things, right? And it wasn't until 1971. That they had lifted those, if you want to call them barriers, we'll say barriers, that they were allowed to be, into the legions, right? Then even going back to the vote, we couldn't even vote until 1960. These are these are some examples. Is there many more? I'm sure there is. Like I said, I just want to set the context for where we are now. But what I'm trying to get at is I want to highlight some of the current efforts that we are working towards and how we're getting better. And some of those are just through the Canadian Armed Forces Indigenous Awareness Training. Are we getting better? Is it happening? Yes, it is. I know now they have what's called online, what's the word I'm thinking of, distant learning. They have a program. It's on there. It's it's Indigenous 101 program. There's like 17 chapters that everyone has to do. That's a mandatory training for all people in the Canadian Forces. So everyone's learning, not only Indigenous people. You know, recruitment and retention. We've all heard of these Indigenous summer programs. There's 5 of them across Canada as we go from the west to the east. In Esquimalt is Raven. You know, we have Bold Eagle in Wainwright, Alberta. We have Grey Wolf in Meaford, Ontario. We have Carcajou in Valcartier and Black Bear in Gagetown, New Brunswick. We also have what's called the Indigenous Leadership Opportunity Year. That's through every year at the Royal Military College. It's a 1-year program for those that are willing to go on to, and once again, opportunity. Should they wish to continue on with their education, should they wish to continue on with that career, that is totally up to them. What I'll say for myself is I'm from Mistawasa, Hiawatha Cree Nation and Treaty 6 territory in Saskatchewan. In Mistawasa, we don't have a monument or a cairn on our reserve. You know, and so Chief and Council got a hold and they asked, he says, how can we get better? How can we do this? And so just through connections through Veterans Affairs, you know, there's money through commemorative programs, just that commitment to truth and reconciliation and calls to action. What are we doing? What changes are we making? Are we just sitting here talking? Are our bosses just talking and you're just paying lip service? I'm going to tell you hand over heart that the boss, the commander of the Canadian Army, I've had an opportunity to work for 2 now, Lieutenant General Joe Paul and as well now Lieutenant General Mike Wright. They definitely taken this serious approach to understanding what truth and reconciliation is, you know, and I like to, and you may have heard this, but I say reconciliation, right? And it's through their actions, it's through their what they're doing and how they're implementing this and standing behind their words to get better as we all continue to learn.
A First Nation in northern Yukon is turning to new innovative technology to preserve their language. And as APTN Sarah Connors tells you, it includes turning elders into holograms.
Nunavik elder Walter Peter never imagined he'd see himself as a hologram. Yet here he is, watching a nearly life-size 3D version of himself.
What did you think when you saw yourself for the first time?
How that work? In Peter's small home community of Mayo, Yukon, about 400 kilometers north of Whitehorse, this kind of technology was once unimaginable. But now it's being used to help preserve language and culture for future generations with just the tap of a finger.
Check out different elders as
they're... lots of fun, long time ago.
Yeah, all that stuff there. We put into holograms. I put in hologram in a way so people would know.
I didn't believe in that.
The holograms are part of Kwandagando, a new joint 3-year project between the First Nation of Nunavik, Carleton University, and the Office of the Commissioner of Indigenous Languages. Its name means to keep the fire burning in Northern Shoshone. The project entails recording elders' stories, oral histories, and traditional crafts. There's even a virtual reality game where elders voice animals, helping guide learners on a language journey.
What we've done is we've taken our elders' voices. Walter, who you did an interview with, he is the crow in this story.
The First Nations Heritage Manager says with elders passing on, it wanted to find a way to safeguard its culture and language.
We've only got about 6 fluent speakers left in the community, and you know, if we don't capture that, then we lose it.
Sometimes we go swimming in the river.
The idea to use a holopresence machine to capture Nunavik culture literally came to life thanks to a working partnership with Carleton University. Sampson admits some elders were skeptical of the project at first, concerned that their sacred traditional knowledge would be up for grabs for anyone to access. But the project is only available to Nunavik citizens, and right now the holopresence housed at the First Nations Government Office.
People are understanding more of what it is that we're trying to do, and it's been an overall, I would say, success in people are engaged and they want to participate. That's preserving the cultural side of things.
The project is still growing. More cultural activities will be added, including the use of AI to preserve the Northern Shoshone language. AI will eventually be used to help with language learning and even construct new vocabulary. The Carleton professor helping lead the project says Nunavik unique Northern Shoshone dialect isn't readily available for AI to learn from just yet, and his students are now digitizing language materials to help make that happen.
Then once that is all gathered together, then AI can learn how to, what is Northern Shoshone, how does it work, what are the grammar rules, and eventually learn to speak.
Citizens can also access the project online, though holopresence makes the experience a lot more immersive. No matter how citizens choose to access it, the goal isn't to replace traditional language learning, but to complement it.
You cannot pack those things around the bush. You gotta learn up here, you gotta keep it up here.
Once the project is complete, its model will be made publicly available so other Indigenous communities around the world can create their own. For Peter, the best way to preserve his culture is to share it.
They've all gone, I'll be sitting there today.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Mayo.
We have more news after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Veterans Program in Manitoba is headed up by Justin Woodcock, who also served 8 years in the military and Navy. Woodcock spoke with T.R. Whitley about his role, the recent apology from the Canadian Armed Forces, and what he hopes to see come from it.
Tansa, T.R. Wheatley, and Tenestagaswa and Opaskwayak Uche. So I am here to talk with somebody who happens to be also from Opaskwayak. Can you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Justin Woodcock. I'm a veteran from Opaskwayak Cree Nation, and I serve as the program manager at Southern Chiefs Organization, and I oversee the First Nation Veteran Program.
So this year, Indigenous Veterans Day is a little bit special to you, November 8th. Tell me a little bit about that. Why?
Yeah, we're really excited. This is the first year. Recently, Bill 210 was passed, and we were collaborating on that bill alongside with the province and MLA from Waverley, Special Military Envoy David Pankratz. And they passed the bill, and that enshrines Indigenous Veterans Day to ensure it's observed every year in Manitoba. So we're really excited about that. It's the first year that it's going to be done that way this year, so it has special meaning.
And then you were talking a little bit about the SCO and this veterans program. It's kind of the only one in the country and a little bit special. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're the first of its kind in Canada. We provide full wraparound support for First Nation veterans, and we're based in the medicine wheel. So we look at the 4 quadrants of well-being with the First Nation veteran in the center, and our program aims to address all the needs in each one of those quadrants. We provide assistance with veteran affairs claims, monthly cultural workshops and events, peer support events, and we do advocacy for veteran issues at all levels of government.
And I guess, Justin, how many people, how many veterans are involved within this SEO that you work with?
Just this year, we had over 200 interactions with 150 unique veterans. It's the program's expanding its reach, and recently this year we really made an effort to reach out to RCMP folks as well, because our program serves RCMP veterans as well.
And speaking of this year, something also special, there was an apology made to people who face discrimination within the service. Tell me a little bit about that event, and I guess what you hope that comes from it next.
Yeah, it was really meaningful for me to hear the apology from the Chief of Defence Staff in regards to the racism experienced by members in the Canadian Armed Forces. I know myself, I experienced some of those instances of racism, and I know the hurt and the trauma it can cause, especially when it's from peers and folks that you consider role models. So to have the Chief of Defence Staff to come out and say that wasn't okay and that changes are being made and we're moving forward in a good way, it really touched my heart. It showed me that things are coming along, and it just reflects today's theme of look how far we've come. And you know, I have children. My wife is a currently serving member. She's a captain, and I think about that apology in relation to my own children. And I'm really proud, and I feel like I would be honored if my children were to sign up and wear the uniform. I know that it's a much safer place for them to be in.
Absolutely, and then, you know, to continue on that, there was something about traditional, I'm not even saying it right, but the traditional aspect.
Yeah, so a lot of the veterans I serve, they seek traditional healing to treat their service-related injuries. And what that looks like is if I have a First Nation veteran that's seeking support for, let's say, PTSD treatment, they might go to a traditional healer on the reserve. The problem is they're not supported for those costs from Veteran Affairs. Now, conversely, if that same veteran were to go downtown to the hospital, all those costs for transportation, the medicines, and the practitioner would be covered by their benefits. I don't think it's right that veterans should be told how they need to seek treatment. I think veterans should decide for themselves how they need to be treated and how their healing journey looks like. And I think for Veteran Affairs Canada to adopt a traditional health policy that supports and covers the costs of that traditional healing would go a long way to healing and supporting our First Nation veterans. First Nation people in Canada have an 11-year shorter life expectancy gap. We know that. And when we don't incorporate our ways of healing into our treatment plans, that's a factor. So we need to see that changed, and so that we can shorten that gap.
Well, I just want to thank you for your time today, Justin, but also serving and, you know, the work you continue to do.
Thank you very much.
The population of Pavernatuk, Quebec is booming, but their water infrastructure is breaking. The Inuit community has had water shortages, and exclusive documents show a permanent solution might be a pipe dream. APTN video journalist Tom Fenario does a deep dive into the water crisis in Nunavik. Here's a preview of this week's APTN Investigates.
With a population of over 2,100, Pavernatuk is the largest Inuit community on the Nunavik side of the Hudson Bay, and the second largest in all of Nunavik. About 2/3 of folks here are under the age of 30. For years, their population has been booming. There's a lot of kids playing in the streets. And because of the lack of housing here, a lot of overcrowded houses when they go home for dinner. Infrastructure everywhere is struggling to keep up. So the family house has an important role to play when it can stay open.
It was a sad moment for our community members who come here to do activities, because we were forced to be closed for a whole month to help with the emergency state.
In May, a state of emergency was called to combat a water crisis. Not only was there a boil water advisory for 3 months, some people went days, even weeks, without running water in their homes.
We had to even take snow from outside to do our own dishes, to wash our hands, even to deliver water to the elders. Some of them were saying, I've been thirsty, so I need water delivered. Once you're so used to having water to this day, it's very hard not to have it.
And that's all the time we have for tonight. From all of us at APTN, we want to thank every veteran, past, present, and future, for your service and commitment to this country. I'm Chris Nachkate, wishing you a safe weekend with family, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Ekse.